just discontent with everything and everybody. And so in 2010, we did the first clinical study. I got kicked out of high school with my diploma. I want to start with that, all right? I am not a doctor. I was fortunate and blessed to be the founder of Isaiah House. So here's what happened. We put the device on this person when they are in full acute withdrawal, right? So there's a scale, it's called the cow scale, and that measures the withdrawal that person is in. And it goes from 1 to 32 or 1 to 33. And so we generally wait till that person has a score of about 28, I think I'm correct, before we would put the device on them. So immediately there's some kind of stupid magic moment that happens with this thing. It's electrodes go to the mastoid bone behind the ear. It's got a little wire attached to an iPhone thing that's attached to somebody's hip. They control the intensity of that trickle charge that does whatever it does, and I know a little bit about what it does, and it makes sense, and I'll get there. But immediately there's a change in them. You can see them just go, and what that does for us is a miracle. Because if I don't get them to that point, I don't care how many clinicians you got, I don't care how many nurses you have, I don't care how many doctors you've got, you're not going to have somebody to treat. We've got to get somebody to sit still and go through the process of what it is that the treatment provider is going to try to do with them and the tools that we're going to give them. In 48 hours, in 24 hours, they're eating a full meal. This is unheard of, guys, right? Gals, this is just, you don't see that in treatment, right? They're not eating a meal probably for the first 2 weeks while they're in treatment. And within 48 hours, they're on the basketball court and they're playing basketball. And so what it does is in order for us to feel normal again, we have to go out and do more dope. We've bankrupted our dopamine. It's bankrupt in our brain. And so the only way to create dopamine again is to artificially stimulate the neuroreceptors or go out and do more heroin. That's the only choice that I have. And so when I start feeling sick, it's the most horrible sick that you could ever imagine. Take COVID and the flu and just imagine that, because that's about what it feels like. So put the device on, they wear the device for 5, 6, 7 days, and I've got somebody that's absolutely ready to receive what it is that we've got to give them. And without it, they're going to run and they're going to get high. The average, we call it elopement rate in treatment. It's when somebody walks off. The average elopement rate in treatment today is 30 to 40%. 30 to 40% of the people that go into residential treatment end up walking off AMA. And the reason that they walk off is because they don't have a device like the NET device to help them feel normal again and just calm their mind down and the physiological symptoms down. So we put the device on, the girl starts feeling better, they start eating, no diarrhea, no vomiting, restless leg goes away. By day 3, they want to take a shower, which is really nice. We want them to take a shower. And so by day 3, they want to take a shower and they take the device off because they can't wear it in the shower. I've had dozens of them throw up in the shower when the device comes off. So the physiological symptoms go away while they're wearing the device. That's why the restless leg goes away. That's why the runny eyes, the runny nose, the vomiting, the diarrhea, all of that dissipates with the device on. As a parent, as a grandfather, I've got 13 grandchildren. None of them are addicts today. But if I know this tool is available, And if I couldn't provide that tool for my son or my daughter or my grandchildren, it would really hurt, because this is probably one of the best tools in the toolbox. My toolbox is limited. You're in construction. You have an array of tools that you can use to build things, right? I don't have that. I've got methadone. I'm not a big fan. It works for some people, but I'm not a big fan. I've got Sublocade and Suboxone. I'm a bigger fan of that. I don't have a lot of tools in the toolbox to use to help somebody just be able to detox and sit through the process. Is it a miracle cure? It has been for some, and I can't explain that. I don't understand it. Is it a miracle cure for the vast majority of people? Not alone. But what it does do is it helps them sit long enough to be able to absorb what it is that those master degree therapists are trying to teach them, help them get through the trauma that they may have experienced in life, and be able to deal with life on life's terms. So for me, it's been a miracle. I've seen hundreds of people go through it. And I've got 2 miracles here. I remembered when both of them came in. I remembered when Rebecca's mom called me. And so without it, I don't know that they'd both be here. So is it worth it? I think it is. I think it is. It's my story. Yeah.
So I had a question about the Net Devices relationship with the Isaiah House.
Yep.
Can you please explain how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So I so believed in the Net Device that we don't have any ownership in the Net Device. There's no other relationship with the Net Device or the Net people other than we so believed in it that we felt like we needed to invest our time, our talent, our place for people to experience it. So other than that, that's it. We just so believe in it.
So if someone
Chad.
comes into the Isaiah House,
Yep.
and you feel like that they need to use the Net Device and they agree to it, I think that's part of it. They have to agree to it.
Yeah.
Then, you'll use it on them.
Yes.
And then that could be for somebody from Scott County currently, right?
Yes.
If they come into Isaiah House from Scott County, you'll give it to them if they agree to it.
Yes, absolutely. Now, previous studies, we had to go through double-blind studies, so you didn't know if you were getting it or you weren't getting it. They can speak more to that because actually Rebecca works for them today. But my understanding is the next one's not going to be a double-blind, but actually everybody will get the device.
Yeah, I think Jeff Lott, when we get there, can answer that, because they did that double-blind study last year. I
Yes.
think with 100 participants, we've seen that study, what they could share, because that study is before the FDA, I believe, today, right now.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where it's at in that process, but
Yeah, and the way we
Jeff
ended
can
up
answer
with
that.
it, Chad, I remember when Joe came to me, he said, look, we brought this device to bigger places than Isaiah House. And they told us it doesn't fit our model. And I'm thinking, my God, if your model isn't about helping people get well, and there's not that many tools in the toolbox, I think we're making a mistake by not investing in it. The only harm I've ever seen come from it is the tape leaves a rash behind the ear. Other than that, I would say it's worked 95% of the time for the hundreds of people that I've seen on it.
So just so I'm clear, because I want to make sure my thinking's clear in this.
Yeah.
So it is not that you all use that as far as when to basically stabilize people's need or addiction.
Yes.
To have whatever drug, just fill in the blank, whatever
Yes.
that is. However, it's not a part of the recovery process. It's only to get you to the point that you stabilize that addiction. When you get into the recovery part, it's not in the tool that you use in the toolbox. Am I correct in saying that?
I would say for the vast majority, but the only reason that is because the studies haven't been geared towards that. So when they revise the study, if they can get past this FDA clinical, right, that's coming up, I think that would be the next step. Right now, they're actually doing something similar in West Virginia, except it's invasive. And so they're actually going into the brain and they're putting this device, which is the net device, sort of. It's not it, but it does the same thing. And it's stimulating those neuroreceptors in the brain to help somebody feel normal. So the short answer is yes, that's exactly right. Once we're past this phase, I think you'll see it starting to do other things. Can I bring up one other thing, Judge?
Absolutely.
The bridge device, because I know that had come up. And we've used the bridge device. And so I want to talk about the differences between bridge and net. The bridge device, I wore both devices. I couldn't ask my clients to wear something that I wasn't willing to wear. Because when you say neuroelectronic therapy, all kinds of things can run through somebody's mind, even when you're slamming heroin. So I wore the device. I also wore the bridge device. The bridge device is invasive. It punctures the ear. And I mean, when it punctures the ear, it goes through the ear in 3 spots. So it's very uncomfortable. It's extremely uncomfortable. The second thing is it's only opiate friendly. The net device, while it's being studied for opiates only, I've seen it work for methamphetamine. I've seen it work for cocaine. I've seen it work for every opiate under the sun. So it's something that is polysubstance abuse friendly, where the bridge device is one drug use. Also, once it punctures the ear, I've got to throw it away. I can't reuse it on somebody, right? So that device, which was $550, gets thrown in the wastebasket at the end of 5 days, where the net device, all I've got to do is clean the electrodes off and re-stick them behind somebody. Oh, they throw them away and put new electrodes on. Okay, all right, yeah. And reuse the device. So I can use that device on multiple people. Big difference.
And each time it's actually programmable, that same device is programmable
For different drugs.
on different folks.
On different folks, yeah. Yep, so we picked the one with the quickest half-life and utilize the device for that detox, and then the next one, and then the next one. Because the clients I've got coming in, on a 12-panel drug test, they're gonna fail 10. It's not just opiates.
Other questions?
You mentioned methadone and Suboxone.
Yes,
Will this device work for that?
absolutely.
Because I think that was at least 2 of the fellas in the final fix. That was what they couldn't get off of.
Absolutely.
They, in fact, what they said was they tried multiple times. And
Yeah.
It was they couldn't do it.
Yeah, the drug of choices for me were well before the Suboxone thing, but everybody that comes through our facilities have always said that Suboxone is a really, really difficult detox.
Yeah.
So earlier today, I emailed Jeff Lott about what's the status of the FDA approval. And Jeff said he'd be happy to speak to that. So it might be a good time for Jeff to speak to that right now. And Jeff's behind you, Mark.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Mark.
I hope I made you proud, buddy.
Yeah,
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to hear that feedback, and we're very proud of the work that we've been doing for well over a decade in Kentucky, and excited to do a decade's more worth of work. And,
Yeah, I know.
we're hoping that it'll be commercialized very soon. We submitted our official, FDA information packet, you could call it, in September of 2023. It's for market clearance, is kind of what we say. It's basically to give us clearance to go to market and make certain claims about this device. It's normally a 6-month process from submission to you get your final answer. We have had a few back and forth. Generally within that 6 months, when they're looking at all your data, they'll have questions, and then you have so much time to respond and all that type of jazz. So I think we've had 2 conversations with him, the last one being just a couple weeks ago. We felt pretty positive about both of them, especially this last one, but certainly no guarantees. But the bottom line is when you're dealing with them, since they're a federal agency, there's laws that basically require them to respond in any communication within certain amounts of time. And so with that in mind, we're very confident that they're either going to say, yes, you're ready, you're good to go, or no, we need more information from you sometime at the end of March or first week of April, probably. So that's the timeline we're looking at, just about 2 months away. So all this work for the last, decades really, but here in Kentucky, the last 15 or so years is coming to a head, and we'll kind of get somewhat of a final answer in just about 2 months from now. So that's kind of where we are with them.
Question from Master Wallace.
Jeff, I'm curious, and you may have answered this before in some of our previous sessions. I'm still perplexed by hearing from what Mark just said about their experiences with the net device, why the Commonwealth of Kentucky did not allocate opioid funding for this device. And I want to hear your perspective on why, if this is something that it needs to be invested in, why the state of Kentucky didn't do it.
Yeah, it's a great question. We applied to the state, last spring, and felt like we had a pretty good application. Why did they deny us specifically? I'm not sure. We've kind of had some backdoor conversations with some people that have given us different reasons. One of them being that we were going to pay the researchers too much. One of them was that they didn't really know that it really worked that much. They weren't confident in its efficacy. Another one that they didn't tell us, but that we, I want to be careful here, but I'll say this. Shortly after they denied our application, and not just us, by the way, they denied a lot of applications of people that I think in hindsight, I've heard, they're kind of just denying everybody. But right after a lot of those denials is when they made the announcement that they were going to want to invest $42 million in a new drug that's currently illegal even to study in the United States because of the harm that it's been shown to do. And to put that in comparison, the largest grant that they had accepted up to that point, I want to say, was around $1 million. And then they announced that they want to spend $42 million on a new drug. So did they see us as kind of a competitor for some reason to them? I don't know, which would be strange because, they're the government. They shouldn't really have a vested interest in winners and losers. They should, in my opinion, explore many avenues and let the best ideas win. But we are talking to them again. There's a new administration now. Russell Coleman's the new AG. He's kind of cleaning house. Brian Hubbard, who was the commission chairman, resigned. Kind of was fired, but they let him resign, I guess, with some dignity. And they're pretty positive on us. We've spoken to Russell multiple times, and he likes what we're doing and has encouraged us to reapply. And so we're planning on doing that, within the next couple months. So kind of reworking our application at this time. But the short answer is I don't know why they denied us. We don't really know for sure. So.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions for Jeff? And then Mark, any other questions for Mark?
Real quick, tying on to what Chad asked, how were those commission members appointed? Were they appointed through the legislature or the governor or who?
Different ways. I think the governor got to appoint two commission members. I believe the Attorney General's office got to appoint 2 to 4 members. I'm not sure how the rest of them were appointed. There's some like community leaders. I know there's a couple of people on there who represented the addict community because they themselves were former addicts, or I don't know if you can say former addict, but they used to use opiates. So I'm not an expert on how every person was selected, but I know no one person got to pick all of them. It was through different
Yes.
means.
So Cam, our county attorney, has.
It looks like there's a statute that covers that, 15.291. Says the commission consists of the following voting members. I can read this, but if you want, but the statute says how it's done. 1, the attorney general or his designee who shall act as chair. 2, the state treasurer or his or her designee. 3, the secretary of the cabinet for health and family services or his or her designee. 4, 1 member appointed by the University of Kentucky from the Healing Community Study Team. 1 member appointed by the attorney general representing victims of the opioids crisis. 1 member appointed by the attorney general representing the drug treatment and prevention community. 1 member appointed by the attorney general representing law enforcement, and 2 citizens at large appointed by the attorney general. Looks like they're almost all attorney general. Yeah.
So,
Judge, I'm going to add
Some of
one.
the attorney general did get to select a lot of them.
yes. Mr. Wallace has another comment.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for dominating the conversation, but I'm getting ready to head out. I did reach out to Karen Butcher today, who is our representative that was on the task force from Scott County.
She's a citizen at large from Scott County on the task force.
Yeah. And she indicated that she thought that the reason the state did not move toward allocating funding was due to they wanted to move toward, she called it safe housing. And that was a term that they would allocate money for people, I guess, that are in recovery, that they are vulnerable at that time. And Mark, you may be able to speak to that more. But that there is an area that people fall through the cracks.
Yes.
It is after they have gone through all the steps, and then
Yes.
they leave maybe the Isaiah house,
Yes.
that they don't have safe housing, and they
Yes.
thought the funding was probably best to be used there. That's her words, and I'm just want to share with the court and
It's
and you
one
all.
member of the
Yeah.
commission.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So you kind of hit on this earlier. So there's 2 FDA-approved devices already, the Ascent Sparrow and Massimo Bridge. Massimo's a huge player. They just sued Apple and won for their rights for the pulse oximetry, right? And this is a world I live in. I've treated a lot of these patients, see a lot of these patients, both pre-hospital and in hospital. Why is it then that if you look at all the evidence still shows, even with these 2 FDA-approved devices, that medications are the safest and their efficacy rate is so much higher than these devices? Like, it's hard for me to say, let's spend taxpayer money on something that the medical community, evidence-based.
Not taxpayer money.
That's not taxpayer.
Well,
No, it is all taxpayer money.
I mean, it
at the end of the
is.
day.
It is at the end of the day. We're
Because
spending
it comes
the
back to the taxpayer because we spent the money to lock these people up, to house them in the jail, we spend money at the treatment centers already. It all comes back from the taxpayer.
Well, I think the best way to put it is we are stewards
Yes.
of the settlement funds.
I'm trying
And
to
we
be
want to be
good
the best
steward of
stewards.
money.
Yeah.
But the medical community, evidence-based practice shows us, and I've talked to 4 today, 4 different addiction specialists out of 2 in the state, 2 out, one that's at UK. And he said today that even with these other devices, that still, they know without a doubt, medications are the way to go. He actually said it could be malpractice-ish to not use medications and to use a device like this. That's what the evidence shows them. So how does this body spend money on this device, knowing that the medical community, the overwhelming body of evidence shows medicine is the way to go? This might be an alternative, but currently there's just no evidence for it. Like, how do I vote to spend money on with that and these 2 other devices that are already approved that haven't really worked? Like, how does this device work? I mean, I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
I agree with you. I don't think the other devices work very well. I think Mark could possibly attest to that in his experience with one of them. Our device is unique in one important way. We think that the 2 devices, the Sparrow and the Bridge and the Net device, there's something that all 3 of them have in common. And we believe that is that they stimulate the vagus nerve, which is I'm not a doctor, but I've been told like
It's cranial nerve number
important
10.
nerve. They kinda go from the head
Cranial
down.
nerve number 10.
Okay.
I was gonna say that.
So we believe all three devices do that, and what our device does that's distinctive is one, ours is transcranial, so both of those other devices, I believe, are only more on one side, at least one of them is, to stimulate that nerve, but ours is stimulating a part of the brain called the nucleus accumbens, and that's what is stimulating those, the part of the brain that deals with dopamine and serotonin. We don't think those other devices are doing that at all. And we would say that ours actually is effective, and you can see that's the data that's before the FDA right now, that we see a success rate of if you're just talking about getting through withdrawal symptoms, I mean, that success rate's over 90%. If you're talking about long-term abstinence, it's not as good, but it's still over 70%.
Well, I think a lot of what you said kind of gets to my point. Like, you say a lot of "I think," right? And it's hard for me then to say, like, there was a blood substitute that came out in 2008, I think people might remember. It's called Polyheme, right? If you're in Lexington, Scott County, or surrounding areas, you get a wristband saying, "Hey, I don't want to be part of the study." It showed all these great things. There was people at UK when I was there that were investing in this company. They're like, "Yes, Polyheme's the way to go." And once it got out, it got big, it showed it caused a lot of cardiac issues. And because people said, "I think Polyheme works," people were all in on it. So you're saying "I think" a lot, and I'm all for it. Like, I hope this net device works, but it hasn't been shown to work. So it's like, how do we spend money on something that we're saying we think?
Can I say something, Doc?
Yeah, go for it.
So I work with 30 different treatment providers around the state. Nobody has the net device. Nobody uses the bridge device.
Does anybody have a Sparrow that you know of?
Yes. Yep. That's yes. Yep. But these devices, what is marketed is Suboxone. What is marketed is methadone. And so I don't have anyone in my sphere of influence that manages thousands of beds that have been able to use the net device, whereas everybody uses Suboxone. We did a study. We had an in-house team. I've got hard data to show this. This isn't hypothetical data, right? So we have a team of data analysts. The number one drug that was relapsed on for people in my treatment center once they got a job was Suboxone. It was Suboxone. And that led to them using other drugs. And then they found their way back to our centers. So I think the reason that I think what you're saying is we're just not seeing it because we're not allowed to use it. I got told if it wasn't in FDA clinical trials that my insurance company would drop me, right? I couldn't use a device that the worst thing that happened was a rash behind the ear, that they would drop me if I wanted to use that device. And so they pigeonhole us into not providing the data that you need to see. The drug that Jeff is mentioning that they want to give $42 million to is Ibogaine. My God, I mean that's something that's illegal in this country. I know people that went to Costa Rica to use Ibogaine and got lost in the woods and have never returned. But that's something that we're talking about using today. When this device, these two need to speak, right, about what it did for them. If I had a child or a grandchild that was in active addiction today, I would much rather have them be on the net device than Suboxone any day.
Can I ask a question for people that might not know? Like, Suboxone is what is given to try to help them deal with.
It's a great tool in the toolbox.
But the hope is to gradually reduce the amount of Suboxone over time to get you away from drug usage.
Yes, but some can't.
And some can't.
Yes. Yep. Some need to be on it long term, especially if they have chronic pain. Right? If they're suffering from chronic pain, I'd much rather have them on Suboxone than have them on any other opiate.
I just assume people that come into Isaiah House, they either pay, like for long-term treatment, patient treatment, they either pay or you put them on CMS or some type of Medicare, Medicaid.
Medicaid.
Medicaid,
Yep.
depending on their age and stuff like that.
Yep.
So if you have somebody that's on Medicaid and you treat them with a net device, does Medicaid reimburse that, or do they recognize that?
It's all part of the per diem.
So you're just taking per diem, you're not,
Nothing. Yep, nothing.
And then Jeff, and in 2 months, hopefully, you will have a report from the FDA that says, hey, you are, yes or no, able to market this device to treat opioid addiction and withdrawal symptoms. That's the hope, within
That's
2 months
correct.
or thereabout. And then,
That's correct. We're hoping they're gonna say, give us market clearance, which basically says you can market this as a service and charge people money commercially.
okay.
To use it.
Judge, if that is expected within 2 months, why are we even talking about dollars?
Just to be blunt and transparent, Rick is very passionate about this. Rick asked it.
But is this about the research part of it or purchasing the device to be used?
So the
And-
SOBR study is proposed by the Net Recovery Incorporated to do a study in Kentucky. They want up to 500 participants, and they have made a proposal to us to do this study and follow up to 34 participants at $32.54 per participant, and they'll do the initial treatment. They'll follow them and stay up with them over, I think, a 3-year period. Jeff, is that correct?
1 year period.
1 year period.
We're expecting the study on the whole to take 3 years simply because we won't say this is day one of the study, we're gonna get 500 people. So.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can speak a little to what he was asking. So I do kind of see the confusion. It's kind of two different things. We feel like we've done what we need to do. We have the data we need to have to show that this device works and getting people through withdrawals. And as Mark was speaking of earlier, getting them to have a clear mind so that they can appropriately take care of the other parts of addiction that exist that are beyond just the physiological. However, the study that we're proposing is not to see if it can do that. We believe that it already does that, and we have the data to prove it. What we're trying to study here is more long-term. We want to see a year later, how are you doing, basically? Are you, did your wages go up? Did you stay out of jail? Did you get evicted? Did you have any kind of criminal history? Did you engage in any educational services, so on and so forth? So we feel confident that it is research, but it's not to be like, does this thing work at all? We know it works. We want to see how much does it do. We know what it can do in the short term. This study is to see how does it affect people more in the long term.
So a good picture, if the court decided to approve participation in this, then we're going to try to identify clients that are willing to participate in this study. That might be from a jail referral. It might be from referral from the drug court that we have here in Scott County. And what that would look like is if they agreed, they'd be, I guess, get some education about the device. And then my understanding is they'd actually go to a facility like at the Isaiah House and do the actual, is it 4 days?
We say 2 to 7. Most
Okay.
people are, the participant decides how long they want to be on it. They usually love the thing at first, they hold it close, like a treasured possession, because it's helping them feel normal, as Mark pointed out. At some point before day 7, usually they start to not receive any kind of benefit from it, and it becomes a little bit of an annoyance, so they just want to take it off, and they say, I'm done. And at that point is when we release them, because usually that means that the detox is complete.
But the real goal is it's not finished then. They need
Right.
connected to services. They need peer
Of course.
peer counseling and peer, they need all those wraparound services. And from what I understand, the Isaiah House would step in and help. And whether how long they had to stay there to maximize that benefit there, wherever they're at. But then we have the Isaiah House IOP here, and it might be where that person stays a period of time there, wherever it is in the in-house facility, and then transitions back here and goes from there. But it's kind of a wraparound program, is what I see. And then Jeff, one more time before we ask our other guests to speak, can you just, from the studies that you just shared, you said up in the 90 percentile, your data reflects that individuals, go ahead and share what you shared earlier.
That 90% number is over 90% of people who put it on would say that they feel benefit. And by benefit, that means when they're going through withdrawals, I think Mark mentioned the COW scale, which if anybody doesn't know what that is, this is what it is. If you go to the hospital and you're laying in the bed and the nurse will come and ask you how you feel, 1 through 10, and they have the little thing on the wall with the smiley face at 1, and 10, he's like, crying, right? 10's like, I'm about to die, I'm in so much pain, and 1's I feel great. So the COW scale is kind of a more intricate, detailed opioid withdrawal specific version of that, to be like, to determine or to measure how bad are you feeling right now in your withdrawals. So over 90% of people have I want to say it's an 80% reduction in their COW scale. So whatever that number is, I think it maxes out at 33. Over 90% of them, it goes down to by 80% within 5 days of having our device on.
And then you also mentioned a figure of in the 70s about. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that would be people who are we really only have good data out to about 3 months. So we have anecdotal stuff that wasn't, we've kept up with people, but not as part of a properly detailed study. So we have a lot of data that shows in 3 months, over 70% of people are still drug-free. Mark could probably comment and say, people who don't use the net device, what percentage are usually drug-free after 90 days that enter rehab? I don't know what he would say, but I am willing to bet it's less than 70%.
Yeah. Well, we certainly understand that it's a challenge, and that number's probably not near 70%. But we have a couple other guests, and just in the spirit of moving things along in time,
Sure.
would you it's Rob Capley, right?
Yes, sir. It's nice to be in front of a government and not have any legal issues. I just want to paint a small picture. You all don't know me well, but I love a microphone. So I just want to kind of help you all understand kind of where I came from. So I'm born and raised and still currently reside in Lexington.
Hey, Robert, just to clarify, if you guys got to watch The Final Fix, Robert was one of the participants in that movie.
Yeah, there was a documentary completed in 2018 when we did filming. I'll get to that part of the story because that wasn't, that was God, not me. So, I grew up in a great family. I had the all-American lifestyle, you could say, was great in school. I got introduced to drugs when I went to the University of Kentucky and joined a frat. That was the thing to do. I quickly got addicted. And for 13 years, I was a heroin addict and a meth addict. Within 6 months of using drugs, I was an IB user. And I am someone who has an extensive criminal background, right? Because what am I going to do to get those drugs? Absolutely anything, right? I've tried every option possible to get sober. I've tried counseling. I've tried outpatient. I've tried Suboxone. I've tried methadone. Do I think Suboxone works? Yes. Is there evidence for it? Yes. The issue for me with it is that they overprescribe the Suboxone, and someone who is still in a criminal mindset will take that extra Suboxone that they're not taking, and now they're selling it on the street to their friends, right? And now this is the drug that people want to buy when they can't get anything else. So I get introduced to NET. Actually, I call Isaiah House back in 2018. Homeless, living in a cardboard box, nothing to my name. Everyone had left me. 90 pounds soaking wet. I just hit 200 last week, so I just want y'all to know, like, I've gained some weight. I called Isaiah House on a whim. Actually, I called because I was like, Mom, I called rehab. Can I have $20? Please. And they said, hey, we have this new device. We are going to do a trial. And at that point in my life, I said, what do I have to lose? So they called me back a couple days later, and they say, hey, heads up, you're going to be filmed from the time you get here till the time you leave. And I said, I'm going to be a movie star. I'm going to rehab. I had no intention to get sober at all. I'm telling you all right now, I enjoyed the chaos of that lifestyle. I had no desire to get sober except to figure out how to get my next fix. And when I went to Isaiah House, they said, hey, you're going to plug this up. And I said, you all are absolutely crazy. This is not going to work. You're going to have to give me some coping drugs like Suboxone or methadone or something to make me comfortable. I'm only here to appease the court and my family at this point. And I put on this device and they say, hey, in about 20 minutes, you're going to stand up straight. No, I'm not. And they plug up the device. And in 20 minutes, you can see it in the film. I'm literally hunched over, can't even move. 20 minutes later, I'm on camera like this. It was almost like I felt like an alien, kinda, right? And here I am, 13 years of using 4 grams of meth every single day, 8 grams of black tar heroin, any other drug I can actually get my hands on, marijuana all day, alcohol all day. And here I am with the device with 0 withdrawals, no nausea, no diarrhea, was able to sleep after just 6 hours of having it on, woke up the next day, ate an entire pizza, which is also documented in the film, and I started to feel like the actual Rob for the first time in over 13 years. Not only that, but it was a device where I had to put nothing else in my body ever again. No other drug, no other medication. Yeah, mental health stuff still plays a role, but here I am day 2 in a rehab doing chores, making my bed, eating, going to class, participating in class, being honest and vulnerable with the therapist who's like, is this guy absolutely just crazy? And I couldn't believe it. So after the whole filming got done, I stayed for 14 days. I decided to return home. I could have stayed longer at Isaiah House. I had some other things that I had to take care of. I also had a criminal background, so I got locked up 2 days after being home. I was 14 days sober, and I did 9 months in Fayette County Jail for really big charges, and stayed sober the entire time in jail. Which, if anyone knows, there's actually more drugs in the jail right now than there are on the street. Way easier access. And I stayed sober. And I said, this can't, what's going on? I get out of jail, and this is when the real work comes, right? Like, I had to stay involved. I had sober living. I was in the Fayette County Drug Court. I was, working a 12-step program. The NET device was not the cure. The NET device took away the withdrawal, the alternative form to treatment that got me to a place where I could actually participate at a much faster rate. 90% of people aren't going to go to rehab because of the fear of withdrawal. It's real. Ask any addict on the street. They don't want to withdraw, or they have too many things they have to get done before they can attempt treatment. And here I was, living a life. Now I want to paint what that looks like post-treatment. Is it took away pretty much every craving that I had. And I can't explain what that looks like. I did have therapy and recreation and sponsorship and support and accountability from the courts and drug testing and all the things that were required for me to stay sober. But I had no desire to even get high anymore. It helped me feel like a normal person. Now, my life today, which I don't think is necessarily attested to NET, but I think it's attested to the fact that someone took a chance on me and gave me an option. And 15 months after being sober, I got my dad into treatment after not speaking to him for 13 years. To Isaiah House, Mark gave me an opportunity to be a peer support. I started working in treatment after being sober for 15 months. I did peer support for a year. I became a lead peer support specialist licensed in the state of Kentucky. I moved up from there to become a licensed case manager for 2 years at the women's program, which has then led me to go back to school, where I've graduated with a bachelor's in human services and counseling. Today, I'm a licensed substance abuse counselor working at Roaringbrook Recovery, and I'm a full-time grad student at Western Kentucky University. So, with no legal issues, no probation, no parole, I've completely taken a life consumed with drugs and alcohol and turned it to something absolutely beautiful. And I was one of 5 that got the opportunity in 2018 to be in this film. I talk about it to everyone today, and everybody looks at me like I'm crazy. Everyone says, "Where's the evidence?" Well, I can't give you the evidence because nobody will give it the chance. Nobody. Well, you want to use this. Well, you want to use that. Well, that's great. But there's another option that has been used since the 1970s, 70s, has been used on celebrities, has been used in other countries, but yet the government here can't attest to what? We got to keep people in the system too long? We can't make money off of them? Why are we so concerned about trying to treat them and not getting them to a point where they're actually active members of society again? Why are we not concerned about the number of overdoses that we consistently have every day, where I literally have friends die every single week and month? That is to the point where my family is consumed with grief because of addiction, and every one of them asks me, "Can I do that treatment that you did?" Unfortunately, you can't.
Questions? We appreciate you coming and
Thank
giving
you.
us your testimony and firsthand experience with it, and value your input. So
I appreciate the opportunity. I promise you, Rebecca's going to give you even more because she works with them. I'm on the outskirts. I have traveled all over, and we get the same answer everywhere. I've been to New Hampshire. I've been to D.C. I've been all over Kentucky. I have been to numerous states, talking to numerous congressmen, numerous representatives, and everyone still just gives the runabout. And I think if we could just have one body of government take a chance, they would see that this actually works.
thank you.
I'm going to give this to my bestie over here, Rebecca.
Okay, so my name is Rebecca. I am not a movie star like Rob, but we are in talks about making another one so that I can get my face out there. So I am from San Diego, California. I grew up in a very happy family. The thing about addiction is it does not discriminate. The stigma that is attached to it is unfounded because it can affect anybody. Like I said, my family was very, very loving. I had everything I needed growing up. My first issue with addiction was alcohol. I went to rehab for alcohol when I was about 28 years old. And at that time, I had a full-time job. I had my own house. I had, all the things that you're supposed to have to be a productive member of society. I just had this alcohol problem that I needed to solve. When I went to rehab, I was introduced to a lot of drug addicts, shockingly, and I was also introduced to Suboxone. So I was introduced to Suboxone as somebody that is not an opiate user to begin with. I was not introduced to it from the rehab. I was introduced to it from the people that were prescribed it. So that was actually my first venture into any type of opiate use. Yes.
I'm sorry, did you say, how were you introduced to it?
The clients that were at the rehab were prescribed it, and they are the ones that offered it to me.
Thank you.
Yeah. And anybody that is not an opiate user that uses Suboxone gets really high, really high. It's a very strong opioid. And so that was my first introduction to the opioids. I ended up, after leaving that rehab, I ended up starting to try other things. After Suboxone, I started using heroin. And after using those things, it did not take me long to lose all of the things that I just said that I had going into that rehab. I lost my job, I lost my home. I ventured into the criminal lifestyle, just like Rob was explaining. And everything about my life was different. I was different. The person that I once was, you could no longer see anymore. My mom was very worried about me through all of these years. She was always texting me different rehabs, different treatments, different things that I should get into. I did not listen most of the time when she would send me anything, but she did send me one time something about the net device. And after she had sent it to me, she said that it was only available in Europe. And I was like, well, that's just fantastic. That doesn't help me at all. And then she texted me again and she said, well, actually, Becky, they're doing it in Kentucky. So if I can get you there, will you go? And I had to take a serious look around my current situation. It was not good. I had overdosed the day before for the probably 10th time. Everything I owned at that time, which wasn't much, but everything that I owned at that time had been stolen from me. I was, again, homeless. I was on the run from law enforcement. And so everything about my life at that point, if it continued on that trajectory, was either going to end up in prison or dead. And at that point, I just said, fine, I'll do it. And so she picked me up in Oakland and had me on an airplane. And the next morning, I was at Isaiah House in Versailles. And I really hadn't clicked on any of the stuff she had sent me. And so I really didn't know anything about NET, but she made me listen to this podcast on the way. And the way that they were describing it was something that it just seemed unbelievable. You know, something that could help take away your withdrawal symptoms in half an hour to an hour. And it just seemed like some sort of a miracle. And I was like, yeah, that's definitely not real. Did not believe it at all. And also, like Rob said, I didn't really have the intention of getting sober. It was just kind of like, I just had to get myself out of that situation at that moment in time. And my long-term goal was not anything that I was even considering. And so when I got to Isaiah House, and I did not believe that this net device worked at all, I was asking the woman that was setting me up. I was like, so I can still get Suboxone when this doesn't work, right? And she's like, don't worry, you're not going to need it. And I was like, okay, yeah. And so she puts it on, and I'm going through all of the standard, you know, withdrawal symptoms that everybody talks about. Your stomach is killing you, your back is killing you, you're sweaty, your legs are going a million miles a minute, you know, all of the things. I'm yelling at everybody around me because it's everybody else's fault, of course. And when they put the device on, within about 30 minutes, like, you could see an actual difference in my skin tone. Like, and I was able to sit up straight, and I was able to apologize to everybody for just yelling at all of them. And I'm not going to say it took 100% of my withdrawal symptoms away, because it didn't. But the difference was like night and day. And what it did was it made it bearable. And then over the following days, it continued to get better and better. Towards the end of the third day or so, I didn't feel anything at all. And anybody that's ever been through any type of opiate withdrawal, it's not, I don't even want to say it's not pleasant. It's awful. It is absolutely awful. And that is why people will go to the lengths that they do to continue to get what they need to just make them feel normal again. The biggest thing that actually, let me go back. The thing that was most impressive about the net device for anybody that's especially in a 28-day rehab is it lets you immediately start working on all of the things that you need to start working on. You need to be able to get to classes. You need to be able to get to therapy. You need to start learning the tools that you're going to need to be able to be successful, because the net device or rehab is not going to fix you. You know, there are things that you're going to have to continue to do. And if you're not able to get out of bed and even start tackling any of those, especially in a 28-day program like that, you're not going to be successful at all. In speaking about a few things that that Mark was talking about, the device that the implant in the brain, which so many people have sent me this over the last like 2 weeks. It's insane. But they're like, oh my gosh, is this real? Is this real? And it's like, really, the concept is very similar to what NET does. It stimulates those neurotransmitters. It starts creating the things that we've been artificially creating with the drugs for so long. And that is how you're getting through those withdrawal symptoms and taking away those serious physical cravings. But it's literal brain surgery. Like, it's actually, like, you can't get more invasive than that. And it's incredibly expensive. The NET device, there's nothing invasive about it whatsoever. It doesn't pierce the skin in any way. It's taped onto the skin. And it's just, if anybody's worried about using the NET device, I can only imagine how many people will be worried about getting something implanted in their brain. And as far as like the long-term recovery portion of it goes, just like Rob had mentioned, I haven't had a single physical craving since I've used the device, which is another thing that is unheard of. As far as medications go, yeah, it satisfies your craving because you're putting another drug on top of it. And when you take that drug away, what are you going to do again? You're going to still be craving that. And in my experience with Suboxone, not only did I abuse it, but I sold it. That was the first criminal case that I caught. And I withdrawed from it, which was really awful. It was honestly worse than a heroin withdrawal. And so to have something that it's not a short-term solution. It's not just to make the withdrawals go away. It's to make them stay away. It's not something that you have to continue to come back to utilize. And it's not another drug that you're going to be just replacing it with. I think that it's really important that we have some other options in our toolbox. Since leaving treatment, since using the NET device, I have, like Mark mentioned, I work for them now. And I have been able to I was able to treat people in the last study that was a double-blind study, or a quadruple-blind study, actually. And so I got to see other people go through the same process that I did. And it's the amount of people that are constantly messaging me about their daughters that are going through this, or their sons that are going through this, or their uncles that are going through this, and all they just want access to it, and they're so mad that they don't have any access to it. And we just, like Mark said, we just need some more tools in our toolbox, and the more opportunities that we can give to people, the better, because people are dying left and right.
Questions? Thank you
Thank you so much for
your
having me.
time and willingness to come and share.
I do have one quick question. Out of the
Dave.
5, I watched upon Rick's recommendation, out of the 4, because I know one was kicked out of the study, or kicked out of the house. What about the other 3?
So, great question. So, there were 5 of us in the study. One of them unfortunately passed away shortly after leaving the treatment. Went right back to the same.
I think that was in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other 4, myself, Brandon, Ross, and Kevin, are all still in touch today. As far as I know, I have not talked to Brandon recently. But
I talked to him.
Did you? Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
me, Ross, and Kevin,
I
myself,
He's got caught like
myself,
it.
Ross, and Kevin.
showed up out of nowhere, didn't I?
All 4 of us are sober. Brandon did have a short-term relapse and immediately knew exactly where to go. He went right back to the Isaiah house, and that was, I think he literally relapsed, and the next day went to treatment, and he is still sober today. So we are all right at 5 years sober now.
Jeff, you want to comment anything else there?
Yeah, to my knowledge, everyone's still drug-free and doing well. I talked to Brandon probably about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks. He's in Manchester, and he's doing well.
Yeah. Brandon actually completed our welding school.
Yeah.
So he came in with a Walmart bag full of clothes, and he left making $40 an hour.
Well, I mean, that's a testament right there to what you all do, the services that you wrap around. And I've been and visited, and very, very impressed with what you all do there, and appreciate what you do. Question?
Not a question, a comment. Be careful what I share, but so Donna and I, mainly Donna, because I'm usually working, but we're compassionate, as you can tell, about helping these folks. We have family members. I've shared with the court before. We have an 11-year-old daughter that we adopted, and she's actually blood related to Donna, and it's because of opioid abuse with her parents. And so we also, so there's at least one Suboxone clinic here in Scott County, and those folks are 6 days a week to get their prescription. I don't know proper terms. I've also worked around and am currently working around guys that they got to go every morning to get that, and they can't get off of it. That's what they tell me. And so there's at least one. I think there's more, but I know for sure there's one Suboxone clinic here in Scott County. They're all over the country. And it's a daily thing for these folks. And Donna and I have been trying to minister to some of those folks here locally. And she's built a relationship with a few young ladies, and they're on Suboxone, and they want to get off of it. Of course, we don't talk about the device because we know you just can't arbitrarily, but we know it would help them. I'm confident of it. I understand, Ryan, what you've said, and your knowledge is way more than mine on the medical side, but I don't want to change the subjects, but this device has got a huge track record. You just heard from the founder of the Isaiah House and how he's treated hundreds through the years. But if you watch that movie and the lady that developed this device is probably close to 50 years ago, and they discovered it with acupuncture, and she took it from there, and it's fast tracked in that movie, but because it's so many years. But they developed this device, and it's been used on rock stars that you would recognize the name back in the 70s, who are still sober today. Because the friend of mine that's a mutual friend of ours that introduced me to Mark McPalm and the Isaiah House, a fellow by the name of Larry Martin, he is the guy that invited the net device people 15, 18 years ago to come to Kentucky. And he's a retired pastor. He lives in Louisville. And he has kept track of a lot of these people, and personally. And so the net device has a track record that is positive. And I can't find anybody in fact, the first negative comment I've heard about the negative net device was tonight, talking about pulling the tape off. So I get it. But when people in the medical community, and I've talked to them as well, those are the same folks that would encourage you to take, well, I'm not going to, I don't want to go down that path, but so if we're at that point, Judge, I want to support these folks, and I want to partner with them. And so
I do want to be clear. I'm not against this device. Just in my field, we have to go by evidence. Like, you have to. I can't just go out and say, I want to treat this person. I know other people that this remedy has worked for, so I'm going to do it on this. Like, we have to follow the evidence. And that's what they're seeking to do with this FDA trial, right? They're even trying to get evidence, right? So I'm not against it. I want to be very clear, because I feel like that's kind of what came across. It's just,
I didn't take that way.
The field I work in, we have to have evidence, and that's what I want to see. And until it's there, it's hard for me to say, let's spend money again, something there's no evidence for yet.
Let's talk about that real quick.
Mr. Corman,
Go for it.
you've not said anything tonight.
Well, no,
It's got a coat on, nobody saw it.
no, it's a really great presentation and talking about tools in the box, and I think I would support it, but I'd like to talk about what is the support, what are we looking at specifically, the commitment and dollars and length of dollars and time.
Well,
I know we've talked
the
about this, but I just wanna
proposal,
talk about it now.
the proposal is for 34 study participants at $32.35 per participant. And what they're asking for up front is 60% in an initial payment of that, because we asked if we could kind of pay per participant. And their proposal is to be able to do that and go through, they would like 60% of that up front to start getting the work done. And then I shared an email that I'd asked for clarification. Essentially, if we don't get through all 34 participants, then we will be reimbursed those funds from what's not used. But
So that total is 110,000. Did you?
110,000.
60% of it.
They want 60% of it.
Right,
in
but I mean
initial payment.
110,000 total if everything goes as planned with all the participants.
Correct. That's a maximum out of the opioid settlement
Over a
funds.
3-year period. To
Correct.
get the 34.
To get the 34. But 110,000, 60% up front. Why do I feel like can I get you into this car today and you'll take it?
But it's not a true study though, right? It's just really an anecdotal study. I don't know if Jeff's out, because like you aren't double blind, you're not blinding anything, or like I don't know, right? It's just you're just following people. I don't know who can talk. Rebecca, can you talk to? I don't know. Is it a
Jeff.
Is it a study? Is it a?
It is a study. We're not. It's not blind, but we do have a control group.
Okay.
Yeah. So the control group will be people that are statistically matched by KY stats, who are the same general demographic, who have been diagnosed with OUD. They're using, I think, Casper and Family Health and something services, Health and Human Services. I forget what it's called, but so they're signing some kind of. The government has access to that data, and they've agreed to find people who statistically match the people who we treat, and then they will be compared, if that makes sense. So you'll get a person who was treated with NET versus a similar person who also struggles with OUD who did not get treated, and you'll see the differences. It is a study.
And really what you're looking at is within a year after this initial experience with the NET device, do they have a job? Have they experienced relapse? Are they,
Have they been to jail?
Have they been to jail? All those type of real world things. And our desire is to help people move from being in addiction to a taxpayer that has a job, a normal life, and all those things that come with it. So
Yeah.
go ahead, Jeff.
Quick comment. Whenever we were kind of going back and forth earlier about the evidence and the medications work well, I've talked to a lot of doctors and they all say that. I actually was talking to a doctor, and I don't know how y'all feel about this, but no joke, he was disappointed that there were people out there who might want an alternative to taking medication. He just thought, Suboxone is just such an amazing thing. Like, I can't believe anybody would want anything else. And the truth is, there is a lot of evidence that those things work, but you have to define what work means. And the way that the medical community defines work is, well, people didn't die. That's their definition of this was successful. People who, once you give people Suboxone, they don't overdose in the street. And that's true. And that's why I'm not going to tell you Suboxone is a bad thing, because it does reduce harm. But the question I would ask to anybody who can see me in this room is, if your son or your daughter was addicted, would you want them to be zonked out like a zombie, taking a drug for the rest of their life or for a long period of time, and be happy like, well, at least they're not dead, at least they're not stealing from my purse? Or would you want someone who gets their life back and becomes the person they were before they were an addict. That's what we're trying to present. And I think there's a lot of cases, and I would think that I don't know whether they would or not, but I don't think Suboxone offers that to a lot of people. They don't give them their life back. They keep them from dying, and they keep them from stealing from people they love. A lot of them. That's what success means. But we want success to mean you got your life back. You're the person you were before you were addicted. You know, you don't have cravings. You don't feel, you don't have all these physiological problems that are you're just right on the verge of always going back. And you saw 2 people tonight who got their life back. And there's hundreds more who couldn't be here tonight, you know. We don't want this meeting to go for 3 days, so, but that's my comment on the drugs part.
Thank you, Jeff. And really, when the rubber hits the road, you know, like, that's the truth. I mean, that's the question we need to answer. If this helps one person, is it worth $110,000?
Yes.
And I would say yes.
Well, and you think we made a decision with the health department for needle exchange, and that wasn't so that it was to try to curb hepatitis and HIV, and I think at the time to treat hepatitis,
$1 million.
It was well, it was 90,000 a year for one person. And so, you know, if we could get them to start, which I would like for Dr. Miller to come back and give us a presentation of how all that's going. But I agree. If it's, I've got 3 girls. I can't.
34 people, 100,000.
Can't imagine.
If we can get 34 people,
That's
off,
nothing. That's nothing. Think about what's in the jails.
All right, here's what I'd like to ask. Mark has, out of respect for Mark, but the question needs to be called, is there a motion going to be made? If there's a motion going to be made in a second, then we'll call the vote. That's where we're at. Mark, go ahead.
When we first started with Suboxone, which was probably about 2012, that's when I remember starting with it. Overdose rates then, deaths were maybe in the 30, 40,000s, maybe 50,000. Suboxone is everywhere, and today we have 100,000 dying every day.
I do have one more question. What happens in 2 months if the FDA doesn't approve?
Jeff?
I'm here.
2 months, did you hear the question?
I did.
Where does that leave you? What does
in
that
terms
do?
of us treating people in the context of this study, that won't affect it. We are still allowed to use it in the context of a study, and that's exactly what we would do. As far as what does that mean, how we would position ourselves or go forward with them, I can't say authoritatively, I can only speculate, but if you want my speculation, it would be they would give us a reason why, and my guess it would be they would say, based on the conversations we've had so far, they like a lot of what we're doing. So if they say no, it will probably be because of some specific thing in our data that they say, you know, this is just too much of a question mark for us, this aspect. So if you do a similar study, but you change your parameters to be like this or like that, then, you know, maybe it would give us the answers that we need to give you approval. That's my speculation.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Rick? So I am willing to make a motion, but.
Well, I think Mr. Alonzo Allen raised his hand and had a comment.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That back.
I don't know if they see a sock hanging out of that sock.
Oh, no.
I know that.
You weren't doing that
Alonzo
the other
Allen
day?
City Council, I'd like to suggest that we hear this at City Council. So I'm going to talk to the mayor and ask the mayor that we hear the same presentation and maybe we can partner or something. Or maybe we can extend the study, you know, double it from the, you know, double the size or something like that. But I'd like to present this to City Council and see if, at a minimum, that we partner financially.
So one of the
Thank you,
questions.
Alonzo. I hope you feel better.
Yeah. This is for Jeff. So if the court, well, I am going to make a motion, and so we'll have a vote. But if the court decides to vote in favor, to partner, so my question is, like, when does it start? I think in previous times we've been on Zoom together, you're trying to come up with a lump sum which would include other communities, other counties, maybe Georgetown City Council. What does that look like when start day is, if we decide to partner?
Yeah.
Does that make
so
sense?
We've got 5 other counties signed on right now. We're trying to get to a threshold. We've got about half the amount of money we need to start. So for the people who are more risk averse, let me say this. Maybe this will help. We're not going to start before we hear back from the FDA. Rick, you and I talk somewhat frequently, so you'll know when we hear back from them. If the FDA says no, I believe the contract that we're sending you gives you the rights to just say, okay, well, we don't want to participate anymore. And I don't even want to say you get your money back, because we're not going to even ask for you to actually give it to us until we're ready to start. So that wasn't what you asked. You asked when would we start? Probably in the summer sometime. But beginning of the summer would be my guess. Maybe before that, maybe late spring. But
so what we would be doing then is, if we voted to do this, if the court did that, then we'd be making a commitment. So we would be county 6. Did you say 5 other counties?
Correct, that's right.
So we'd be county 6, and so you've got a number, a threshold that you want to attain with commitments.
Yeah.
And if you get that, which I'm hoping you will, when you get to that commitment, then we'll hear back from you guys saying, we've got this. We're
ready to go. We want you to pay us now.
Yeah.
But until we're ready to go, we all minutes, we're not going to ask for any money.
Make the motion, Rick.
I just made it.
I'll
Thank
second
you,
it.
Dwayne.
I'll second.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion,
Yes, sir.
and what is that motion? To approve the proposal as presented?
Yes.
Do you want to say contingent upon FDA approval?
No, I don't.
You want to do it regardless?
I do.
Because if it's in the contract, it doesn't matter.
Okay. And Cam is looking for it in the contract, and
I don't see it.
Jeff, he doesn't see it in the contract that we have.
Does it not say that either party has the right to terminate? It's not going to say anything specifically about FDA approval, because it's not contingent on that. You can terminate it any reason, I think, until we ask for money to start.
Okay.
If that's not in there, I can send you one that has it. But I feel confident that I was speaking with the president about this, and I thought he put that in there, so.
All right. Well, it says terminate the agreement by providing written notice. See that right there?
If at any time prior to June 30th, blah, 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 in NRC's
Yeah.
judgment, insufficient grant funds have or will be raised to proceed, the NRC may in its sole discretion terminate this agreement. So that doesn't really address what we're talking about.
It doesn't give the county the right to terminate.
No. If a party neglects to perform any of its obligations under this agreement and fails to cure any such breach within 30 days of receiving written notice, then the other party may terminate this agreement. But I don't see any language. I mean, I'm sitting here reading it on the spot, but I don't see anything about like
Sure.
if there's no FDA approval, then the party.
Yeah, that won't be in there. There's nothing about the FDA in there. I was under the impression that it had language that allowed the county to back out between the time they committed and the time they actually wired us money.
I don't see that in there.
Okay, well, I'm comfortable saying here, if you guys want to pass with the condition that you have a contract that allows for that, I think that's reasonable and fine,
Or I can do the motion.
in my opinion. And we can get one that says it.
I can do a motion to commit the funds and not mention the agreement.
Yeah. Stacy said we could do a motion to commit the funds, but the agreement's really where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
But you need to have the paper in front of you before you vote, probably.
But we've shared the draft agreement with the court. They've seen it. I think the question is, it seems like the court is willing to move forward. Rick's motion is to approve the agreement.
contingent upon you guys working out the wording of the.
Well, he put no contingency on it. I don't want to speak for you, Rick.
No, you're correct, I didn't, but I had read what you had read, and I didn't realize that we didn't have the opportunity.
Right, we should have the opportunity in there
Yeah.
somewhere, depending on,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, 'cause
But I think that's a word,
So Jeff, if you could send us an amended contract that would give us the right to terminate the agreement if the conditions of the study were not met, but before the study commences, then
Sure.
would that be your motion, Rick?
Yes, and that should be, Cam, correct me if I'm wrong, that should be in that 3.0, that miscellaneous that you're reading there.
Yes,
So that-
that would make sense, Rick, but yeah,
So that's the motion.
could add another.
Is there a second?
Rob, second. I'll second
Rob with a
those.
second. Any other questions or
I
comments?
had Dwayne one, so Rob second?
I think Rob beat me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a motion, we have a second. What other questions or comments does anyone
I just
have?
have a comment. I'm going to vote no, but I hope this thing works. You know, I hope that it helps, but I'm voting no because the profession I'm in, the evidence body says we should go a different way, and there's already 2 devices approved, but I hope this thing works, so.
Let me ask you, just if in 2 months the FDA approves it, would that change your
Yeah, I mean, it would
mindset?
depend on what the FDA says, like
Yeah.
what, if they approved and what they said is, I mean, they can approve lots of things for,
Okay.
you know, lots of stuff.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion? We
If
have a
I
second.
can jump in and make a quick comment about that. If you look at what the FDA said about, I can't remember if it was the bridge or the Sparrow, or what they approved it, market clearance, and what they said is this device might help reduce withdrawal symptoms if in use in combination with medication.
Yeah, the NSS2 bridge says that,
Yeah.
in combination, the
That's
Sensor is
basically saying it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So our device has never been used in conjunction with medication, so if we get approved, it won't be
All right.
anything like that.
I just want that on the record.
So any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? One no.
I was gonna say, you want to take a roll call.
Can I ask, I would like for us to look into considering passing a resolution requesting that the state not spend $42 million.
I agree.
A resolution is worth nothing,
But
I mean, in reality, but it would let the
believe-
Attorney General's office know where we
I
stand.
thought Karen or somebody was gonna come here.
She was sent an email with an invitation. But with that said, David, let me follow up with that,
Okay.
and then I'll give feedback to the court.
Are we done voting? We did vote. didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we passed. Jeff, we'll talk, you send us that document, and then we'll go from there.
When he said 42 million, man, I just went.
But David, you follow up, but they have not allocated those money, and they have not approved that, and.
But the problem is it can get approved very quickly, and we'll never know about it until
Yeah.
we hear about it.
All right, we'll follow up with that, but appreciate your all's coming, and appreciate our guests. I know it was a long time, but really thought this was an important venture, and we'll move from there. Thank you all very much. Please don't feel like you have to stay either.
Yeah. Talking to us? Yeah. Hey, I got basketball here.
I'll let our other guests know when they can leave.
So moving real quick. Judge Taylor, I'm going to move our agenda just a little bit, and I'm going to ask you to make a couple comments because we're going to comment on 3 resolutions. I'm moving in the agenda to talk about those 3 resolutions about our KPDI. Judge Deals, thank you all. Jailer, thank you all.
Thank you, Judge.
Judge Taylor has been a partner from the start in our regional efforts on economic development, and I appreciate his leadership. And we've moved this thing along. You passed a resolution at your court meeting on Tuesday that authorized you to do the same that I'm asking tonight, to set up the regional IDA. And would you make any comment to our court, before we consider these 3 resolutions, and, you know, what we're doing together, we could not do by ourselves. And it really, I think, will impact our communities and our region with opportunities for jobs. So I appreciate you coming, appreciate your leadership.
You're glad to be here, Judge. Before I get into making that comment, I do want to say one thing, that I'm very fortunate and glad after sitting here tonight that I only have 4 magistrates instead of 7. So I do.
Start on that end. Start on that end.
So it is an honor and a pleasure to be here with you tonight. It is also an honor to be your partner. I think as a lot of us get into these elected positions, that we want to see change for our communities from the way things were done in the past. And I think taking out the competition of being competitors to being teammates is something that will be new in the future. I said to my fiscal court the other day that, you know, the things that we're doing right now together are going to make positive change for generations. And us as elected officials right now might not ever see the fruits of that labor because we might not be sitting in these positions, but true leaders make those decisions now, not worrying about the credit. The thing I would encourage as magistrates is that you have good CEOs of county government that are leading your communities. And as we go through this together, it's kind of taking baby steps because there's a lot of things. You kind of have to be a little confidential about things with the PDI funding and making sure that announcement and getting the award. But this will allow us to be able to start working on that IDA and setting it up. So, and there'll be other resolutions to come in the future.
And as we've talked, you know, the whole way, you know, the goal of this regional partnership is not just to have a site in Scott County, but to have a site in Madison, possibly in Fayette, maybe some other county in the future, that's all under this one umbrella where we're working together, that we're, you know, just the synergy of all those opportunities under one umbrella. So that's the big picture, the long-term picture. And what Reagan's sharing is, you know, we might not realize it and see it come fruits to bear, but I think in the long run we'll be better. So excellent. I'm going to turn you loose. Anybody have any questions for Reagan? I think we'll have support here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge.
We'll see you at 11:45 on the Zoom tomorrow.
Well, I'm not leaving. I started.
All right. All right. You might make me buy you dinner after this. So we have 3 resolutions. All right. We got 3 resolutions.
Colonels are winning by 10.
That's where I'm really supposed to be.
So we got Resolution 2402, which authorizes the county to provide $500,000 in local match funds and serve as the grantee for the Kentucky Product Development Initiative grant as awarded for the Lanes Run Business Park Phase 3 project. That's the local. We have to have this resolution. The second resolution is 2403. It authorizes myself to enter into a professional services agreement with L.E. Gregg Associates for regional economic due diligence with the county funding the upfront cost conditioned upon reimbursement of a minimum of 50% of the cost by one or a combination of other partners. That it will be less than 50%. We put that in just as a safe, safety. The other piece is that the regional group is actively pursuing a grant with Kentucky Utilities, which would pay $50,000 of this due diligence. So we haven't received any news on that, but that's part of the conversation. The consensus of the group, I shared the proposals. There were 3 proposals. This is professional services. We have 3 different prices. I think Cam feels comfortable, 100% comfortable, that since it's professional services and we have 3 prices, that we can consider this and expend funds on this with the approval of the court. And the L.E. Gregg Associates proposal was what the consensus was from the group. That includes all the members that's on the Zoom and everybody involved. They looked at it, got feedback from from them and really felt like their proposal was what best met the needs of the project. And then Resolution 2404 authorizes the judge executive to sign documents necessary for the formation of a regional industrial development authority. So before I sign anything, I'll bring it back to you and we'll have it in front of you. But it just helps us start setting it all up. And every other partner in this will be doing similar resolutions except for the due diligence. Some of them will be doing the due diligence just to say that they'll reimburse us. So, questions or comments about any of this?
So, I guess I left them in there on my desk, but you said you're all, recommendations, take L.E. Gregg's.
The consensus from the group and
Is that their
recommendations.
total number? Because they had two different.
There was one number, and I've got it right here.
Unless I read it wrong.
Yeah, you're right.
The 61,000?
Is on top of the 100.
It was one, I've got it.
Yeah.
Wait just a second.
Ryan's got it there. That 61,000 is on top of the one.
For the Alta Plus.
There was a second, like.
That was the 9. So there was 9.
I've left it in there on my
The
desk.
second one that's the 61,000.
I thought 61 was the total. There
No.
was a 30.
Well, I've got an email here that, from Elizabeth Carter, that kind of, and here it is. So what I have in front of me from L.E. Gregg is 128,241, and that reflects 10,000 for Phase 1 ESA, 34,741 for geotech, 66,000 for Alta surveys. But for L.E. Gregg, that was 9 Alta surveys. That number might reduce once we have conference with the title company and such, because there were 9 parcels at one time that were put together to make this one parcel. It's one parcel now, but they want to do this. Their recommendation was to do the 9 separate Altas.
Whose recommendation?
L.E. Gregg.
I know, and that's another number. What I saw, it's another
That's
61,000 on top of. Well, I'm going off my memory.
And then what I had, a master plan was 17.5 from them that included 3 conceptual plans.
Maybe I didn't get the latest and greatest.
And then,
What I saw from L.E. Gregg.
and then I had a total of 128,241, Rick.
Are you going on?
Yeah, he's.
Is that enough?
So then what is
You mean you can do that?
So Rick,
You just leave?
Rick, it says in the email that if all 9 surveys were required, it's 66,000.
I think the issue is he's not looking at this, he's looking at these attachments that have different numbers or something. I don't know why.
Well, I printed off. Maybe I got.
We got one around noon today, right?
Yeah.
That's one I
Like
think.
earlier.
That's the only time you sent it, wasn't it? One time?
Well, here's what I'm asking you to approve.
Well, I saw 141,000, and then that Alta was another 31.5
Well,
on this paper. Maybe I'm.
what I'm going off is the summary.
I didn't see that.
That was in the email.
I guess I didn't print it. Sorry.
That was on the email, and that was the Altus. What I'm asking you to approve, and we'll make sure that this is what we're getting, is
That's in the same email.
is 128,241.
I didn't get that part of it. I didn't print it.
That's all the part I printed. I didn't know if you were gonna look at it.
Well, I was just looking at page 6. The estimated cost is 141,000. Yeah, got you.
On this
I
email,
didn't see that one. I guess I missed it. My bad.
what I'm asking you to approve is 128,241,
Got you.
and that would be the maximum.
Max, yeah.
It could be less if it's less Alta surveys. And I'll get that all clarified for you.
Sure. No, I didn't see that. I'm sure I missed it.
Well, we got to read the resolutions. So So, Cam, you want
If you want, not to exceed,
to,
or you just say it.
yeah,
Okay, which one do you want?
we'll just
Go
go
order.
with 2402.
Alrighty. Scott County Fiscal Court Resolution Number 24-02. Resolution authorizing the Scott County Fiscal Court to provide local match funding and serve as the grantee for the Kentucky Product Development Initiative Grant as awarded for the Lanes Run Business Park Phase 3 project. Whereas the Kentucky Product Development Initiative, or KPDI, program is a program to help communities be better positioned to attract jobs and business investment. And whereas Scott County United Incorporated submitted an application to the KPDI program for funding in 2024, the project involves $1,500,000 in KPDI funding and requires local matching funds in the amount of $1,500,000 for a total project cost of $3 million. The project is at the Lanes Run Business Park and will consist of 78-plus acres of land grading and site development preparations. And whereas, in order for the project site to qualify for eligibility through the KPDI program, local match funding was required to be identified at the time of application submission. The City of Georgetown, the Scott County Fiscal Court, and Scott County United have each authorized local match funding of $500,000 for a total amount of $1,500,000 as previously approved during the fiscal year 2023 budgetary cycle process. To participate in the KPDI program, certain particulars are set forth below. Whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court deems it to be in the public interest that the county cooperate in the KPDI program as an inducement to locate industries at the Lanes Run Business Park and to create jobs within the community, now therefore be it resolved this 25th day of January 2024 by the Scott County Fiscal Court. The Scott County Fiscal Court will provide $500,000 in local match funding for the project described herein. It is understood that the City of Georgetown and Scott County United Incorporated will also each provide $500,000 in local match funding for a total of $1,500,000 in local match funding. The Scott County Fiscal Court will serve as the grantee, and the City of Georgetown will serve as the beneficiary during the administration of the grant funds at the local level. This participation on behalf of Scott County Fiscal Court is pending the City of Georgetown's resolution to serve as the beneficiary and complete all necessary administrative steps to participate in the KPDI program. The Scott County Fiscal Court's obligation to provide local match funding shall be conditioned upon the approval of funding consideration of the Economic Development Fund, or EDF, application by the Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority, or KEDFA. Approved this 25th day of January 2024.
Questions, comments? This is just on a local,
This is just Lanes Run.
just Lanes Run.
So where does Scott County United get their funding?
The $500,000, they have an annual, part of the, I don't remember if it was 2 ago or 3 ago, when there was a incentive package put together with Toyota. Part of that was they gave a lump sum of monies to Scott United. That money is being used.
But didn't the court also give?
And the court gives annual money, and the city gives annual money as well. But they have, and I can get that clarified for you. But that was the source of money years ago that
I remember
put this
that.
nest egg
From
together.
Toyota.
From
Yeah.
Toyota.
Yeah. But we also did years ago at that same time, I think the court did, and probably the city as well, a lump sum. I mean,
Since I've been judge,
yeah,
that's not been the case. In a big lump.
It's annual.
I know it's annual, but I thought we did maybe my memory's wrong. But anyhow, it just seems like it's kind of like we're paying for that too, type of thing. But I do remember the lump sum from Toyota, which, yeah.
But they've committed $500,000. The city and the county have committed $500,000, and we're going to get another 1.5 from this grant process. Any other questions?
I just have, for my own edification, so when a parcel of land sold, Lanes Run, or whatever, where does that money go? Like $100,000 for an acre, I don't know what it's going for, but where does that $100,000 go?
You've got the Lanes Run Business Authority, and all those funds are located there. And it's gone towards infrastructure development, it's gone towards, all, self-sustaining.
And in the future, money will stay there probably to help pave roads.
And the Lanes Run Business Authority can't put in for this I'm just asking KDPI, help with this 1.5 million?
No, it had to be a county.
Dwayne did a motion.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Jones. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ryan, I hope I answered your question. If you want more,
if they have all this money, why they, that makes sense.
And I can get Jack to give us a update on that status, certainly.
This next one, do you want me to say not to exceed that amount?
Yeah, let's say not to exceed the 128,241. So we're going to read the second one that is authorizing us to do the due diligence with L.E. Gregg, not to exceed the 128,241 that I share as a total. I hate to pigeonhole, but that's the number that I have from the what was discussed, and
That's the way I read it.
yeah.
I read it 2 times today.
And if we have to come back and say, hey, this was left off, I'll come back.
Let's come back.
We come back, but
Yes, because the worst case scenario
Worst case
was
is
9,
128.
and that includes 9.
yeah. So not to exceed 128,241.
Alrighty, Scott County Fiscal Court Resolution Number 24-03. A resolution approving a professional services agreement for the Regional Kentucky Project Development Initiative project. Whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court, or Scott County, wishes to enter into a professional services agreement with L.E. Gregg Associates Incorporated, L.E. Gregg, for due diligence services required in furtherance of the Regional Kentucky Product Development Initiative, or KPDI project. And whereas L.E. Gregg submitted an exceptional proposal and has completed other similar projects for partners to the Regional KPDI project, making them especially qualified for this work. And whereas Scott County will fund the upfront cost of the due diligence services not to exceed $128,241 to be performed by L.E. Gregg, conditioned upon reimbursement of a minimum of 50% of said cost by one or a combination of the following entities who are part of the partnership: City of Georgetown, City of Berea, City of Richmond, Lexington, Fayette, Urban County Government, and the Madison County Fiscal Court. Now therefore be it resolved this 25th day of January 2024 by the Scott County Fiscal Court. The Scott County Fiscal Court does hereby approve this resolution and authorizes the Judge Executive to negotiate and execute all documents necessary to enter into a professional services agreement with L.E. Gregg Associates Incorporated for regional economic due diligence.
Questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Maybe I need to abstain. I just realized the project we're building is L.E. Gregg's the inspectors on it, and they're not, we don't pay them, but they do oversee our work, so I probably better abstain.
Motion and a second. Motion from Mr. Livingston, a second from Mr. Pratt. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And then this last one is 2404. Cam, if you'll read it.
Scott County Fiscal Court Resolution Number 24-04. A resolution of the Scott County Fiscal Court authorizing the Judge Executive to sign documents necessary for the formation of a Regional Industrial Development Authority. Whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court is responsible for the welfare of the people of Scott County, Kentucky. And whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court also recognizes that in the current economic development environment, opportunities for growth may be better realized by partnering with other local governments. And whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court plans to join with the City of Georgetown, City of Berea, City of Richmond, Lexington, Fayette, Urban County Government, and the Madison County Fiscal Court in purchasing and developing real estate for an industrial park and establishing a multi-county nonprofit industrial development authority, or regional IDA. And whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court desires to adopt a resolution designating the Scott County Judge Executive as its authorized representative and signatory for all matters related to the formation of the regional IDA. Now therefore be it resolved this 25th day of January 2024 by the Scott County Fiscal Court. The Scott County Fiscal Court does hereby approve this resolution and authorizes the Judge Executive to serve as the representative of the Scott County Fiscal Court and sign and execute all documents necessary to establish a multi-county nonprofit industrial development authority.
Questions or comments? Motion from Mr. Jones, second from Kelly Corman. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all very much. And then we'll go back up to EMS new hires.
Good evening, everyone. I've already sent you all an email, so I'm going to stick just to the bare minimums as far as the recommendations go here. The first one is on behalf of Chris Runyon. He wants to hire Sarah Bowman as an EMT effective February 12th, 2024 at $13.46 an hour. Also hiring Logan Burke on a part-time basis as an EMT effective January 27th at $11.48 an hour. So that's the two EMS hires.
Question or comments? Motion, second from Mr. Pratt. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And as I indicated, we have a vacancy in the lieutenant position, and so we're recommending Tyler Wollums for an acting assignment as lieutenant. That'll be effective January 27th of this year at $15.20 an hour. So I present that acting assignment.
Motion, second from Mr. Ellison. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And then on J.R. Brandenburg's behalf, I am pleased to recommend two great candidates for the road department. This will put his department back at full staffing, which is another positive thing. The first is Bradley Wiley for an equipment operator and laborer without a CDL at $18.35 an hour. That'll be effective January 29th. The second is William Fields. He'll be a equipment operator and laborer with a CDL. His pay rate will be $23.16 an hour. That'll be effective February 12th.
Motion. Second. Second. I will make comment. There were four good candidates, and the JR and Jeff had to choose from to get to these two. So appreciate your all's efforts. When it's snowing and a mess, we need good people. So we have motion and second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all very, very much. That leads us to new business, and I am not going to call on Michelle Ray like I was. Michelle, can you do it quickly? We got it.
She was prepared.
I thought you were giving me that eye like don't do it.
Now she's wondering why she stuck around.
But I'm giving Michelle I asked Michelle to give us an update. You know, we do the Revenue Commission together, and the 6-month picture of what we have to share with you all is very strong. I'll turn that over to Michelle.
Okay. As far as new businesses that's come into the county, the city and the county, currently we have 9,217 open and active businesses, which in 2023 we took on 1,398 new businesses, yet there were 1,209 that closed, leaving us with a positive 189 in growth. And an idea of aggregate collection of occupational tax through the second quarter of 2024 through December, we are up 2.29 from last year at that time. So we have increased. Right now we are at 14,183,453. Last year we were at 11,890,493.
So that's collected and not dispersed.
Right, aggregate.
After the, like they have to.
Goes to the city, the school, and us.
Yes.
Okay.
We get a copy of that? Sure.
Did you do that because Judge Taylor was here?
How
You
did
just
you
want to
know?
kind of rub it in his face a little bit or something? Is that
How did you know? But with this regional partnership.
I'll take cross crumbs any day.
So I do want to ask JR, can you speak, and Jeff, can you speak? I mean, Chief Ward, the generator project, if we had generators delivered recently, and we've got some in the queue, Chief, you want to speak to it? And then I'm going to ask you all for approval to advertise a bid for the installation of the generators.
Don't we have some magistrates that can do that?
Yeah.
They'll have to.
I mean, for free?
Appreciate y'all donating your time. Oh, it's so nice. Y'all can work together.
Brian runs EMS on the weekends for free.
JR. Sorry, killing the lights off.
You got it. I think. So we've already got 4 and 5.
Yes, we've received several generators.
And then the courthouse is scheduled
Next week.
January 29th.
Courthouse generators scheduled to be.
Yeah.
And
So,
I got them all out to the road department and storing them, so.
Yeah.
very good. And then
We've been working with Tyler, Harold has, and they're real close on helping us to get the bid out for the installation
I
of
talked
the
to him
generator.
today, we're gonna put it out March 5th.
March 5th.
So-
No, they'll be due on March 5th, I'm sorry, we'll put it out next week.
Okay.
So we need your all's approval to advertise a bid for the electrical services to put these generators in place. Motion from Mr. Hostetler, second from Mr. Jones. Any other questions?
I have a question. Did you say the one's gonna be installed here on Monday?
No, it's gonna be delivered.
Delivered.
We have waited, we've
I thought you
waited,
said installed.
have we waited like a year and a half?
This has been a
Yeah.
big, long, drawn-out project.
So,
I'm good. I thought you said installed, delivered. Got
so
it.
all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. John, did you want to share anything else?
No, I know of.
All right.
I want to share something I saw on one of the social medias. The Scott County Fire Department had an awesome video about like come work with Scott County Fire Department. It was really, really well done. I don't know if everybody's seen it, but it was really well done. So
We, one of our members, his girlfriend, I guess, is in videography and photography and all that, but she did an excellent job.
Oh, it's
I mean,
awesome.
it is real, professional looking video.
oh yeah, I was
It's
super
really-
impressed. So I
Great.
just wanna say that. If y'all haven't
And
seen
then,
it, I don't know how to show it to you. Just scroll through social media and
There's
look,
a-
I guess.
We
You know,
appreciate that.
It will
Thank you.
now, since you talked about it.
John, thank you. And then, just want to mention, that, JR and their team, had great, great work done, keeping the roads safe and clear. It's very cold and very tough. And then,
Ready to go to school when nobody else could.
yeah. And then, all our first responders, and then, Sunday morning, it's cold and my power's out. You got linemen out there, so we appreciate all the work people have done, and especially our road department and our first responders and such. So, with that said, there's no other new business. Anybody? Oh!
We have a couple extra copies of the county line with the president.
He's going to be signing them. He said $5 a piece.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second. All those in favor, we're adjourned.
You should have just like.
Yeah, I know.
Nah, it is coming.
I just.
Judge, want to make a comment? You may not. Sure.